Meaning what? The question was asked with a narrowing of eyes. Meaning, he replied, that if I was chairman, I should have determined at once that he was an unclean power. Otherwise, what is it? A cracked pince-nez, all in rags. What kind of foreigner's interpreter could he be? Who are you talking about? Nikanor Ivanovich was asked. Koroviev. Nikanor Ivanovich cried out. Got himself lodged in our apartment number 50. Write it down, Koroviev. He must be caught at once. Write it down, the 6th entrance. He's there. Where did you get the currency? Nikanor Ivanovich was asked soulfully. As God is true, as God is almighty, Nikanor Ivanovich began, he sees everything, and it serves me right. I never laid a finger on it, never even suspected what it was, this currency. God is punishing me for my iniquity, Nikanor Ivanovich went on with feeling, now buttoning, now unbuttoning his shirt, now crossing himself. I took but I took ours. Soviet money. I'd register people for money, I don't argue, it happened. Our secretary Bedsornev is a good one, too, another good one. Frankly speaking, there's nothing but thieves in the house management. But I never took currency. To the request that he stop playing the fool and tell how the dollars got into the ventilation, Nikanor Ivanovich went on his knees and swayed, opening his mouth as if he meant to swallow a section of the parquet. If you want, he mumbled, I'll eat dirt that I didn't do it. And Koroviev, he's the devil. All patience has its limits, and the voice at the desk was now raised, hinting to Nikanor Ivanovich that it was time he began speaking in human language. Here the room with that same sofa resounded with Nikanor Ivanovich's wild roaring, as he jumped up from his knees. There he is. There, behind the bookcase. He's grinning. And his pince-nez hold him. Spray the room with holy water. The blood left Nikanor Ivanovich's face. Trembling, he made crosses in the air, rushing to the door and back, intoned some prayer, and finally began spouting sheer gibberish. It became perfectly clear that Nikanor Ivanovich was unfit for any conversation. He was taken out and put in a separate room, where he calmed down somewhat and only prayed and sobbed. They did, of course, go to Sadovaya and visit apartment number 50. But they did not find any Koroviev there, and no one in the house either knew or had seen any Koroviev. The apartment occupied by the late Berlioz, as well as by the Yalta visiting Likodayev, was empty, and in the study wax seals hung peacefully on the bookcases, unbroken by anyone. With that they left Sadovaya, and there also departed with them the perplexed and dispirited secretary of the house management, Bedsornev. In the evening Nikanor Ivanovich was delivered to Stravinsky's clinic. There he became so agitated that an injection, made according to Stravinsky's recipe, had to be given him, and only after midnight did Nikanor Ivanovich fall asleep in room 119, every now and then emitting a heavy, painful moan. But the longer he slept, the easier his sleep became. He stopped tossing and groaning, his breathing became easy and regular, and he was left alone. Then Nikanor Ivanovich was visited by a dream, at the basis of which undoubtedly lay the experience of that day. It began with Nikanor Ivanovich seeing as it were some people with golden trumpets in their hands leading him, and very solemnly, to a big lacquered door. At this door his companions played as it were a nourish for Nikanor Ivanovich, and then from the sky a resounding bass said merrily, "Welcome, Nikanor Ivanovich, turn over your currency." Exceedingly astonished, Nikanor Ivanovich saw a black loudspeaker above him. Then he found himself for some reason in a theater house, where crystal chandeliers blazed under a gilded ceiling and quinquet lamps on the walls. Everything was as it ought to be in a small-sized but very costly theater. There was a stage closed off by a velvet curtain, its dark cerise background spangled, as if with stars, with oversized gold pieces. There was a prompter's box, and there was even an audience. What surprised Nikanor Ivanovich was that this audience was all of the same sex, male, and all for some reason bearded. Besides that, it was striking that there were no seats in the theater, and the audience was all sitting on the floor, splendidly polished and slippery. Abashed in this new and big company, Nikanor Ivanovich, after a brief hesitation, followed the general example and sat down on the parquet Turkish fashion, huddled between some stalwart, bearded redhead and another citizen, pale and quite overgrown. None of the sitters paid any attention to the newly arrived spectator. Here the soft ringing of a bell was heard, the lights in the house went out, and the curtain opened to reveal a lighted stage with an armchair, a little table on which stood a golden bell, and a solid black velvet backdrop. An artiste came out from the wings in an evening jacket, smoothly shaven, his hair neatly parted, young and with very pleasant features. The audience in the house livened up, and everyone turned towards the stage. The artiste advanced to the prompter's box and rubbed his hands. "All sitting?" he asked in a soft baritone and smiled to the house. "Sitting, sitting," a chorus of tenors and basses answered from the house. The artiste began pensively, "and how you're not sick of it. I just don't understand." Everybody else is out walking around now, enjoying the spring sun and the warmth, and you're stuck in here on the floor of a stuffy theater. Is the program so interesting?